Hello everyone, my name is Valentina Seguel, and today, along with my partner Valentina Cárdenas, we will present an analysis about our evaluative milestone or Hito Evaluativo. The main aim of this evaluative milestone is to analyze the presented case, showing the knowledge and skills we have acquired during the last 2 years of being students of English pedagogy. To make an adequate and complete analysis, we will divide this presentation into three parts. First, Mr. Zapata's role as a teacher. Second, the student's role. And third, the school role. To begin with, we will present a case analysis about Mr. Zapata, who is a teacher in a public vulnerable school in the Biobío region. The school where this teacher works has developed a plan to motivate their students to continue studying, but most of them don't want to, and they just want to finish high school and start working right away. This teacher has been teaching in that school for over 18 years. He has to teach all the levels in that school, and each course has 43 students, which is too much for just one teacher. Mr. Zapata doesn't have many expectations of his students. He often talks down on them to other teachers, and he doesn't really put that much detail into classes. His classes consist of explanations in English, and for the students that don't understand, he just translates what he says. He teaches simple vocabulary and simple grammatical structures. In the words of Mr. Zapata, he doesn't develop other skills because the students do not like to write or do not understand what they hear. He also doesn't teach sociocultural aspects of English because, according to him, the students don't care and don't understand. But despite his background, he began to change his teaching methods. Mr. Zapata has incorporated different instruments to evaluate, and he has tried to improve their students' motivation towards learning English. The latest test incorporated items such as listening comprehension, photograph writing, and a short oral presentation.
Mr. Zapata's role as a teacher. What has he learned through all these years? He has been teaching in the same way for over 18 years, with many levels under his wing, with classrooms full of children that, according to him, don't want to learn. We consider that Mr. Zapata is under a severe labor overload. Maybe because of this, he has decided to simplify his classes, making it easier for him to teach all the courses under his responsibility. But why does he act this way? As we said before, Mr. Zapata has learned that for him to make his job easier, he needs to simplify his classes, since he's the only English teacher in that school, which is too much for just one person. So, for one part, we understand the way he acts, since having a severe labor overload can demotivate even the best of teachers. What would we change? First, we will change his teaching methods, class processes, and activities. How we will change it? First of all, we would add one more teacher to the school, or at least someone who could take charge of the low levels, this being first grade to sixth grade. In this way, Mr. Zapata would not have such a labor overload. Therefore, he would have more time to plan his classes, and this could mean an improvement in his teaching methods. It's worth mentioning that according to the Chilean National Curriculum of Education, it's obligatory to teach English since fifth grade, and every school has the freedom to decide to incorporate the subject before this level. So, for the aim of the analysis, we will consider Mr. Zapata as a teacher from first grade of elementary school to fourth grade of high school. Now, about Mr. Zapata's teaching methods. We can distinguish a series of problems from the teaching to the evaluation process. And we would like to point out El Marco para la Buena Enseñanza of 2021, which says that teachers should have pedagogical interactions that lead their students to cognitive challenging chores. They must emphasize critical and creative thinking and also communicative abilities. Furthermore, teachers should have evaluation practices with formative and summative processes that allow the teaching to be adjusted and to give feedback to the students.
Our first suggestion for Mr. Zapata will be to change his teaching methods and try to implement active teaching strategies. The main aim of this method is to create changes in the classroom and swap from a memory learning method to an active learning one, to encourage students to participate and be a central part of the learning process, to emphasize cooperative learning, creativity, and critical thinking. Following the last idea, we will propose two different activities that complement the active learning process. The first one is called the fish tank. The objective of this activity is to show evidence of the comprehension of a task or content seen during class and give feedback to the students. You can perform this activity at the beginning or at the end of the class. The students write on a piece of paper questions about the content of the course or a specific matter of the class, and then they put them in a fish tank. If you don't have one, you can use a hat or a paper bag. Afterwards, the professor has to answer the questions or make the students contribute to the answers in a collaborative way. With this activity, the teacher can see errors and difficulties associated with the contents.
The second activity is called Exit Ticket, and the objective is to show evidence of the learning outcomes of the students, to ease the process of feedback, taking into account the information collected. Before finishing the class, the professor asks the students to answer on a white sheet of paper one final question. This question is focused on showing evidence of the learning outcome of the students during the class. Another possible format is to make the students write a question that they may have left unanswered or a doubt that surged during class. One last way is called 3, 2, 1, in which every student has to write three things they learned, two doubts, and one connection with other materials. Last but not least, the evaluation process is just as important as the learning process. With this, Mr. Zapata will check if its teaching methods were useful for his students. But before all this, Mr. Zapata should apply a diagnostic test to check the level that his students possess, and from that, he can develop the correct type of lesson for them. In addition, for the rest of the year, he should apply formative evaluations, whose main aim is to ensure the students' learning. If the results are not enough to prove their knowledge, you can go back and teach the topics again. Finally, we must say that Mr. Zapata has begun a change in his teaching methods. We are not sure why he has changed, but we suspect it may have been triggered by the school asking him to motivate the students to continue their superior studies.
A prime concern of this analysis is the students' role. They are the ones that make a school, and without them, we teachers wouldn't have jobs. Therefore, our main focus should be on their well-being. And the fact that Mr. Zapata thinks so little about his students and is not even shy to show his discontent towards them might have something to do with the fact that they are not interested in learning English. It's not something uncommon that some students may not like one subject because of a specific professor. And while we don't want to point fingers, it may or it may not be the case with Mr. Zapata. As we mentioned before, Zapata has been teaching in that school for over a decade. So it is correct to assume that most of the students have been with him since first grade, always having the same repetitive clauses, which may be affecting his performance and enthusiasm towards the subject. We should also mention other factors that could be affecting the performance of the students. First, social economic aspects. Second, what is happening inside their homes. And third, money issues. Since the case comes from a vulnerable school, we are assuming that the students have these specific problems, but it might not be the case for everyone. We are just assuming it. According to the case, most students plan to start working right after finishing high school. We assume that it is a consequence of their socioeconomic status, since they have the necessity to work and to provide economic support for their families. We don't know every student's case, but we have no clue about what is happening in their house. Maybe some of them are obligated to work, or they don't have support to continue their studies, or they simply don't have the money to do so. All these variables can put so much pressure on the student that it could cause distraction to them from their studies. Even though we believe that if they feel some sort of support from their teacher, there may be a change in their minds and they could try a little bit harder on their studies.
The school's role. The school as an institution should see to the well-being of its students and teachers, and in this case, it is clear to us that this school is not foreseeing the welfare of either of them. Now, we may see a hypothetical situation in which the fact that the school asked Mr. Zapata to motivate the students and change the way he teaches is more of a burden to him than something good, because it is only adding things to his already charged agenda. Our proposal is to hire at least one more English teacher to the school because it would not only benefit Mr. Zapata, but it will be good for the students. As a final say, we hope that Mr. Zapata can implement what we said in this video. We must also mention that as future teachers, we are aware that there may be things that are out of our control. Therefore, we must be prepared to face these kind of problems. We should also be self-critical of our work and not become stagnant like Mr. Zapata. According to the profile of graduation at Universidad Católica, we as teachers should take informed decisions that help the progressive development of language skills in our students, and we should also continue to perfect our teaching processes.